Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo mishmash. This one being broadcast live July 24th, 2019. I'm going to be giving a quick update on my road trip gadgets I brought along, mostly just the iPad Pro I want to talk about. We'll be talking to a brand new YouTuber who happens to be helping me co-host the show again for the third time, David Carr. Thanks for joining us. And there's one more thing I want to talk about. Oh, it's why I'm not going to be buying a Sony A7RIV. We're going to get to all that and so much more in just a few minutes. But as I kind of awkwardly teased a second ago, I have David Carr on the other end, and he's helping me co-host the show today. Dave, thanks so much for joining us.
It's good to be here. I was having a little technical glitch, and I was hearing what sounded like 5 of you just now, so I think I just got it figured out. But
ooh, I barely like hearing myself talk. I certainly don't want to hear 5 times.
yeah, it was like everywhere. I don't know what I was doing. I'm still very technically challenged, I guess.
I should pull in the microphone and be like, I am in your brain.
Yeah, it sounded like it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Your backyard looks beautiful. David Carr is a professional photographer in the Atlanta area. I'm a little surprised that you haven't melted into a puddle of sweat based on all of the weather reports I've seen, but you said it's a little nicer today?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I'm out here, because I would not normally be out here for anything other than, you know, running to get the mail. But it's actually been pretty nice today. And we had a really, really hot week last week. It was like brutal, and it's the humidity here. It's always the humidity, but yeah, it's not so bad today.
Good. That's awesome to hear. I won't spend a whole lot of time kind of rubbing in what today is like in Seattle, but let's just say you need a sweatshirt when you go outside.
Oh man, I don't even know where my sweatshirts are. Right
I enjoy this weather. It's pretty nice. We wouldn't mind a little bit more rain, but I have a photo workshop coming up this weekend in Mount Rainier. I was really worried that this summer was going to be like last summer, where it was hot, dry, and a million forest fires all around us that just made the air quality terrible. Yeah. And of course, pictures not so good. But I was up there scouting, some last minute scouting, finding the wildflowers a couple days ago, and it is just spectacular.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've seen some of your pictures, your Instagram stories. It looked amazing, just beautiful.
No, thanks. Speaking of Instagram, you know, I mentioned, David, that you are a professional photographer in the Atlanta area. That's not always the case. You have been a Grammy award-winning musician as well. So it's neat to have this perspective that you have as you kind of transitioned in this life. But I want to let people know who are watching this that links to your Instagram are right down below, along with the first YouTube video that you got up, because we'll be talking a little bit. I'm going to ask you some hard questions, David. Hard questions about being a YouTuber. Man.
Bring it on. I mean, you know, because I have so much experience. I mean, you know, I can just bring such wisdom to the game.
I'll tell you this. There are many days where I do this and I do something really dumb. And I'm like, why haven't I figured this stuff out yet? I've been doing it every day for, I don't know, coming up solidly on 7-8 years of kind of consistently uploading. Actually, that's a little bit of a misnomer, because these days it's not as consistent, but it's just, yeah, I don't know. So I'm looking to you for some advice and help. We'll get to that.
Excellent.
But a couple of things. One, I got to remind folks that this show is brought to you by Squarespace. I have put my money where my mouth is, and I have moved my own Photorec.tv, the website that has all of the content that kind of supports my YouTube channel, everything I talk about, all the gear reviews. I've moved it to Squarespace. I used to host it on WordPress, and I just got tired of all of the extra little stuff that went along with that. And, you know, sometimes it's poor form to talk to money, but I'll tell you this. I added it up. Everything that it cost me to run my Photorec TV website on WordPress, the plugins, the security extras, the theme that, you know, you had to pay for. You don't have to. This is the stuff I chose. All of that added together. Plus, and here's the big one, MailChimp, which MailChimp is fantastic, but it's not cheap. It all added up to be about $2,500 a year. That's, I mean, you know, some of you might look at that and say, that's a lot of money for the cost of doing business and the amount of people it allowed me to reach. You know, I felt like it was a fairly reasonable sum of money. But then when I started looking at Squarespace and what it cost there, and their new marketing platform that is basically MailChimp, Squarespace's version of an email marketing system, I'm now paying less than $800 a year. That's a pretty big, significant savings. I can give you 10% off kind of a segue there, into your first website or domain, gallery, whatever you want to do. Maybe you don't need as many tools as I'm using. It's certainly not going to cost you $800 a year. But you can save 10% by going to squarespace.com/photorec.tv. And I'll also just say this. Some of you might have heard me say email and say, oh, God, I hate email. I don't want to be any part of sending emails to people. In this day and age of kind of like come and go social media, which one's the hot one? Which one should you be sending links out? Which one should you putting information and kind of your attention to? Email still remains the champ, in my opinion, as far as the ease of which you can reach a lot of people. And it shouldn't be overlooked. Even if you're a local photographer looking to build your business, maybe you are just a photographer that's looking to sell work. I'll show a little bit later on in the show just how easy it is to take a post in Squarespace and then just email it out to everybody. That kind of all-in-one system that works together is just fantastic. So thanks for bearing with me through that pitch. They really do help me run my, they pay me. Of course, this is partly sponsored by them, but then of course their tools actually make it easy to run the business. So it's kind of like a win-win. I'm pretty happy. So David, where's your site built?
Well, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to chime in on that or not, but I will tell you that I am a proud Squarespace user, and I am slow to learn that kind of stuff. I mean, I just am, but I have been digging in heavy this week, and over the weekend with Squarespace, just setting up a brand new website, a separate website from my main one. This is going to be to sell prints for purchase.
Nice.
And there's a lot of little parameters you can change, just a lot of little things, and it takes a little time, like anything, and it's easy to get frustrated with that stuff. But I'm going to tell you, like, Squarespace really is, once you kind of get the rhythm of it, it's really simple to use. It's very intuitive, and it just looks awesome. Like, it looks so pro. And I will continue to be a Squarespace user for a very long time.
Awesome. That's good to hear. I didn't know for sure. I was happy if you had supported somebody else. Like Wix is also very good, but I have to say
great things, but
the whole package and the ease of use and you hit the nail on the head with it looks pro. It works out really nicely. Yeah. Cool. Good. Also, we'll talk about this a little bit more in the show, but this show is partly supported by wonderful members like you. Many of you watching our Photo Enthusiast Network members, and your membership makes this show possible, but there's so much more value you all get with the Tuesday tips. So let's lead into kind of the weekend review, stuff that has happened in the past week or two. Actually, this show, we've had a little hiatus. We had a little summer break, and now we're kind of in the middle. We're taking a break from taking a break to make things confusing. Because I had time to do the show. David Carr, you had time to do the show. Steve, who typically co-hosts with me, he is in the middle of lots of busy changes. He'll be back on the show at some point in the future, and we'll talk about those. But we got more trips upcoming, so there will be some more gaps in the regular scheduled show. But I did have this time, and I wanted to sit down and chat with everybody, and it's always fun to chat with my good friend David Carr.
I appreciate that.
So, Tuesday tip. My Tuesday tip is about using the radial filter to kind of highlight your subject. That is a weekly written email that Photo Enthusiast Network members get each week, to be redundant. It drives right in your inbox, and it's on a variety of subjects. I'm going to follow that up with a video that will be out probably later tonight or tomorrow. Plus, I'm going to give you a little bonus video this week as well. And there is just hundreds of hours of tutorials and editing content, flash photography, just pretty much everything you want to do. Building a business, all of the stuff that you need to know is there as part of this site network. And we're really proud of what we've accomplished there. If you want to learn more, you can go to photorec.tv/pen or photoenthusiastnetwork.com. Important question, David Carr. Did you buy anything on Amazon Prime Day?
I did not. I just didn't. I've bought so many things on non-Amazon Prime Day that I couldn't even afford Amazon Prime Day.
You had to take a break. You had to take a break somewhere?
I had to take a break. There were some really good deals, though. I was so tempted to just buy something just because it was on sale.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was saved from really kind of buying stuff by the fact that so I just, I teased the summer road trip. Part of that road trip was actually a week in Keystone, Colorado with a larger portion of my family. We all kind of gathered there. My mom came from the East Coast, my brother from Southern California, lots of great cousin time. And that was the day we were checking out of our Airbnb and hitting the road for kind of the trip back. So it really was kind of a busy day, and I
Sure.
really didn't get a chance to check much.
Yeah.
But did you see that Petapixel article? We'll get into some more news stories in a few minutes, but there's Petapixel article. A couple people picked up serious cameras for $94, a little bit of
Yeah, was there like a glitch in the matrix or something? Because I
yeah,
saw
yeah,
somebody picked up
I
like a
know.
5D Mark III for like $96 or something. It just didn't seem right. So
Yeah, yeah, it was exactly. I think as under $100, right under $100, people were picking up serious cameras. Now it seems like some of those were canceled, but it seems like more than a few because of Amazon's awesome quick shipping and turnaround. Some of those went out the door to the shipper at that price. The best camera I saw somebody pick up, I think they said they got an A7 III, or maybe it's just an A7. We'll pull that article up in a minute. But I mean, cameras that should be a couple of $1,000s, they got for $100.
gosh.
Well,
Wow. Turn around and sell it.
yeah. And even though you and I didn't really seem to pick up anything, we seem to be in the clear minority there, because according to Amazon's own data, this was bigger than their Black Friday and their Cyber Monday
Really?
combined.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Amazon is just tearing it up, man. They are buying the world little by little. So
yeah. Yeah. And I didn't, take a moment to welcome our chat room yet. I think this is a fantastic time to do it, because I'd love to know from you, chat. Did you pick up anything on Amazon Prime? There were some good deals on storage, SD cards, again, discounted. The little SanDisk SSD that I love to use. I've actually kind of switched over to this Lacy now. Can I hold that out? This is where my entire 2019 catalog is. This is a 2 terabyte SSD, and I've been very, very happy with these as a nice kind of easy way to carry that around. So chat room, welcome, and let us know. Did you pick up anything on Prime Day? Let's see. And then I teased this early on. Maybe we should just talk about it right now. I'll go watch the analytics later, and I'll see that everybody watched until I said this, and then it just drops off as everybody's like, okay. But while I was on vacation, the Sony A7R IV was announced. Now, I knew Sony had an event. I was invited, but I said, I got a family vacation. I did briefly consider for about a minute saying, well, could I leave them for a couple of, and I was like, no, this is one camera among many. Every couple of years, there's a camera. Never are my nieces going to be at this age and this cute. Never are my kids, and it's just family. So I didn't feel too bad about it, but I was really surprised that it was the Sony A7 IV. I did not think that was going to be the next camera announced. David, you are a Nikon Z owner.
I am.
Yep. Sorry, Z6 or Z7?
Z6.
Z6. Very nice. Very nice. Right there. Yep. So we're part of the mirrorless squad. You got the Nikon, I've got the Sony, and yes. I teased, why won't I be buying the A7R IV? And the simple answer is because my A7R III is working just perfectly fine.
There you go.
And I kind of joke, but at the same time, I'm serious. I can't justify spending the premium right now to upgrade. I think the R4 looks fantastic. From all information, I think it is a nice upgrade. But for most R3 users, I think you're going to struggle to really justify jumping up to that many more megapixels. There are certainly people that need it. There are certainly reasons you may want to upgrade, but I think for most of us, R3 is a pretty sweet spot. Its current price at $2,400, $2,500, I think $2,498. That is a fantastic amount of camera. And part of the reason why I'm not upgrading is because I did make the jump from the R2 to the R3. And even though that didn't give me better image quality or more resolution, it did give me this better battery life and the autofocus system. My friend Tim, I saw in chat a minute ago, we were talking, he helped me scout a little bit in Rainier this weekend or earlier this week. And you know, I felt like I missed shots, action shots, when I owned the Sony A7R II. Just kind of its user interface and its focusing system just were not quite as robust as I would have liked. And when I moved to the R3, the only shots I feel like I miss are because of me. I've kind of removed that limitation. The being able to move the joystick as fast as any camera, you know, allows you to move the focus point, the touch screen, battery life, a full day of shooting in the Antarctica or Arctic. You know, even in colder temperatures, it's just fantastic. So they've done a really nice job with this. I think they've done a really nice job with the R4, but I just can't justify that expense right now.
Yeah, I don't
That's it.
blame you on that either. I think, you know, we're just in that it's that, it's all like a marketing and kinda sales thing about, like, you know, competition between this company. Well, so, you know, Nikon and Canon released their mirrorless, so now I think Sony has to one up that, which is totally fine and understandable, but I think us as consumers, we have to, like, dial it back a little bit and realize that, just because it's the new thing doesn't mean it's, like, light years beyond the slightly less new thing. You know, I mean, and to those who buy it, great, you know, knock yourselves out, but I do think I could see I kinda figured you probably would stick with the A7R3, which makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, post-processing wise, I have a fairly fast iMac here, and gesturing to this iMac just off screen. And it struggles at times with these
Mhm.
files to move up to the 61 megapixel files. It's going to just be that much more slower. I do love the fact that they have the new kind of updated version of Pixel Shift in it, where it combines up to 16 shots to give you a 240 megapixel image. 240 megapixels.
Wow.
But the catch, two catches to that. One is that really you can't have a moving subject in the image. So very much still life, very much landscape that is very still as well. So grass blowing, leaves blowing, those are things that would create problems for it. Water flowing, clouds moving. Now, a quick way around that is, of course, to create, you know, that large file and then use downsample it in size, and, you know, take the moving pieces from a single shot and overlay them. But that's a lot of post processing. You know, and this does the pixel shift.
These are the top results.
Oh, hello, Google. Google thought I said something. And this pixel shift just combines just 4 files and does not increase the resolution. But then the other catch that both of them still have an issue with is the fact that it's not combined in camera into one single raw file. God, that would be so nice. Nope, you have to run it through Sony's proprietary software, which I don't love. Nobody loves. So that kind of, you know, makes it a little bit less exciting. But again, all things considered, I think it's going to be a fantastic camera. But as you said, just because it's new doesn't mean it's the must-have next shiniest thing that we need to grab.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And I am one who likes to usually I'm tempted by the new things, but I you know, and I'm not a Sony user, but I don't think I would be tempted by that at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Shiznuts in the chat room, I love your name, that's great, says that the Sony A7 III with Tamron 28 to 75 is a hard combo to beat. I agree. That is a very nice combo. And you can see the A7 III is holding steady at that price, but with the A7R III now at $2,500, just $500 more for a lot more megapixels. That's a lot more cropping power if you want them. It's pretty nice. So there's some good choices out there. Again, the next, I think for the last 6 months or so, actually it's been getting close to a year now, I've been saying the next 18 months will be really interesting. So we really have 6 more months that I think are going to be really interesting to see. Will we see the rumors from Nikon of a very affordable full frame mirrorless? Possibly. Will we see a higher end pro version from Canon that will kind of solidify their place in the market, maybe be a little bit more serious on the autofocus side? And then, of course, we've got, you know, what else will we see from Sony in the next 6 months? There's rumors of a bunch more cameras, including maybe a Sony RX10 Mark V tomorrow even. That's not really kind of in the same ballpark as the rest of these, but in some ways it is. And then we've got, you know, what else will Fuji come out with? What will Panasonic come out with next? I think, again, still the next 6, let's say stretch it to 12 months, will be very interesting as all of these mirrorless cameras try to kind of solidify their place and grab some market share.
Very much so.
Yeah. Brian's asking if I'm going to review the Fuji Xt3. Yes. You know, I don't know if I share it out loud or not, cause my video editor has moved to Colorado. So that transition put a couple of projects on hold. He has that. He's actually waiting on me to give him a bunch of files to kind of support the review. And I need to do that very soon. So there will be a review out in the Fuji Xt3, which is I mean, that camera's been out for a while, but I did want to share some thoughts on it. It's another fantastic option as well. We are not short of any options that are keeping us from making beautiful pictures.
Very true. We are not.
Yeah.
Too many options.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just remind Photo Enthusiast Network members that tomorrow is the last day to enter the July image review. This is a benefit that you get as being part of a Photo Enthusiast Network member. You get to submit images each month to be reviewed by professional photographers that sit down and give you constructive and helpful advice. It's a fantastic way to get feedback on your work, to grow as a photographer. It's just one of several ways to get feedback on your work as a Photo Enthusiast Network member. And if you're picked as kind of the highlight or the winner of the month, you win fantastic prizes from Bay Photo, which is where we get our work done when we print. And it's just kind of awesome. It's just a nice little extra thing on top of kind of growing as a photographer. So keep that in mind. And David Carr, I saw an Instagram story of yours the other day. You've been working on a book of your Antarctica photos.
Yes, I have. Very slowly. It's, much like the Squarespace thing we were talking about earlier, learning the interface of how to, and just the kind of the flow and the rhythm of how to put something together like that. It just takes time, and I'm a perfectionist, and I really want it to be great, and I don't want to just, be sloppy about things. And I mean, who does? But I can get so micro focused on things that I kind of just get tired of working on it. So it's just taken me a long time, but I'm really close to being finished with that book. And really all it is right now is I'm using Blurb, which is a great service for making your own books. I'm going to put it together, see how it looks and feels. And, if it's something that I feel like I could print some, more copies of and maybe get a little bit better deal, buying them in bulk, there might be a handful of people that would want to purchase them. And because I'm really happy with the photos and I'm really happy with the way it's turning out. So I can't wait to show people one way or another, whether it's for sale or not. I'm going to have it finished very soon.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. You got some killer shots on that trip.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, David and I both went to Antarctica earlier this year. Sometimes it kind of feels dreamy that was this year that we were in Antarctica.
Totally.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing your work. Again, if you want to see David Carr's work, his Instagram is linked right down below this video. You scroll back a little and you'll find some of those fantastic Antarctica shots.
Thank you.
Really excited that you're making a book, because I think it's just one of the best ways to kind of put together a group of images that just really work.
Well, and people will say, hey, I'd love to buy a print of that photo, or can I see some of your other photos to maybe buy a print? And I think if you have a book, at least you can kind of tell the whole story of the trip. I mean, it was so surreal. The whole experience was just, like you said, dreamy and surreal, and just sort of, did that really happen? Did we really see that? And so I've got a lot of photos in this book, way more than I would ever share in like a Facebook post or something. But I just wanted to put them all together and kind of just, I don't claim, and I'm sure you don't either. We don't claim to be experts on Antarctica just because we went there one time. But just seeing what we did see was just so monumentally epic, and people were so excited, for you, I know, and for all of us who went. There was so much enthusiasm back home from our loved ones and friends. And so I just want to be able to kind of show them, not just in an Instagram feed and not just on a website, but, something to thumb through and kind of look at these photos, to take them in that way. It's always a beautiful way to see photographs.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm again really just excited to see that, and I love the touch on the fact that it's a way to tell a story. And so often, we kind of we take this shot or that shot, but to be able to kind of put them together and have somebody look through and kind of experience some of what we saw. Yeah, that's a nice story.
Absolutely.
It's cool. There's some great questions being posted in the chat. Just a reminder, put a Q in front of them. Roy, who's helping us out today and also put together our show notes. Thank you, Roy. We'll be collecting all of those, and David and I will be answering them towards the end of the show. So I want those questions. Just make sure you put a Q so that we see them and get grabbed in the end of the show. Okay, now we're going to dive into the portion of the show is one of my favorites. It's also a benefit of being a Photo Enthusiast Network member. You get to submit images to the show and get some feedback on it. Really, though, there's so many ways that Photo Enthusiast Network members can get feedback. We really target this to kind of giving you some Lightroom tips and tricks, but of course, you get some feedback on your image as well through that. So I've got my screen shared here, and I need to pull up the images that have been submitted. And we're going to start right here with this very first one from Deb. And Dave Carr, you can see this?
I can, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good, good. And I know sometimes on your end, David Carr, that it might not be as crystal clear coming through. So if you need to ask for any clarification on something you see, is just let me know.
Sure. Or I'll just be like, what camera did you take that with? It's so grainy.
Was that at ISO 8 billion?
Yeah. No, it looks great. I can see the clarity. It's
okay.
Good.
Good. Very good. Very good. All right. So Deb is a Photo Enthusiast Network member, of course. And also I was standing pretty close to her when she took this shot. This was Iceland last fall. And this is just this. It does have a name. I can't remember it at the moment. I probably also couldn't pronounce it very well. But it's a waterfall. It's kind of at the end of a valley that is literally full of more waterfalls than you can count. So this is pretty cool. So a couple of things right off the bat that grabbed my eye, and that is we've got some spray in the sky, maybe even a little bit on the lens itself, and we certainly have some lens flare action in a couple of spots. And I don't know, do you have a general opinion about lens flare, David?
You know, I don't. I'm not against it. I have a few shots where I got lens flare inadvertently, and I really like it. It just, to me, it's all part of, does it look right? Because, there's some people that want to have it on every shot, and it just doesn't look right. But there are times where it just kind of, to me, just kind of fits the image. I mean, if you look at it as a piece of art, sometimes that kind of, it really signifies that the sun was really coming in, bright in that corner, or just kind of, it just depends to me. And I can kind of go either way depending on the photograph.
Yep, I feel the same. There are certainly times where it works, and there are some bits in here that I think are fine, but these green, bright white, and purple, they just keep grabbing my eye.
Yes.
And I know a lot of times when we're out in workshops and then we have these moments of teaching, Allie's great tip. I think Dave says this too. So you squint your eyes, and anything that catches your eye, if it's not strengthening your image, you should probably remove it. And these very much catch my eye. So just real quick, I got the Q tool. That is your spot removal tool. And I'm just going to kind of click on each of these. And Lightroom would be a better place, or sorry, Photoshop would probably do a better job of removing these. It usually does. But for this quick kind of demonstration purposes, it's really not too bad, except it grabbed part of another light flare. That's a great example of when Lightroom isn't the smartest. So we have like a Venn diagram up there as well. So my general tip is to make it just a little bit bigger than it needs, not much more than that, to get rid of those. And we have this one creeping in here. Doesn't always have to be a spot. You can click and drag to make a slightly larger area as well. But you really want to make sure when you line things back up that you do so in such a way that it makes sense. These other little bits here, they don't bother me as much. They're kind of more part of the story of water droplets catching the light, I feel like, more than those bright guys up there.
I would agree. I think that looks better without the three bright ones you had.
Yeah. And then this is a JPEG. When you submit to this show, you could submit JPEGs or a DNG or a RAW file straight out of camera, whatever you would like. I think, Deb, if you've done some editing to it already, I suspect that you have done some. I think I mostly agree with it. I might bring the shadows up just a touch more. I'd love to see a little bit more life off here on the left-hand side. And I might also warm it up just a touch more, because over here on the left-hand side, it starts to get a little bit cooler in those shadows than I like.
Mhm.
And it also almost seems a little bit greener than I like. So I'm going to warm it up. Actually, that's quite a bit. And I think that I like that. You got any opinions, David?
Yeah, that improved it quite a bit. I
Hmm.
think sometimes you have to start by looking at your photo and look at the tones of it, and like, light is so interesting when you've got shadow and then you've got light. Oftentimes the color balance, the white balance, kind of gets thrown off a little, and so it'll either skew in the direction of being too blue or maybe too yellow, warm, kind of. And so that was good. I think that kind of brought it to a good place where it just looks correct to me. That's the only
Hmm.
way I know how to put it.
Yeah. And then I'm on the fence about this rock right here in the left corner.
Hmm.
I wonder, I'm going to try a crop for a second. I'm going to try a 16:9, kind of more of a pano feel to this, and which happens to, kind of get off that rock. There's a tiny bit left. So let me go ahead and do it right. What do you think?
Yeah, I was looking at that as well. I mean, there are a lot of different ways you could work this, but I do think taking that rock out. Sometimes when you've only got a small portion of something, like in one of your corners or on one of the edges of your frame, if there's only a little bit of it there, it sometimes can be a distraction because you're kind of like your eyes saying, "No, what goes beyond that?" And so by taking that rock out, I think you strengthen the image. Yeah, that really looks. I think it just looks better to me. It's more honed in. You're still getting the action you want to see of the beautiful water, and but you didn't really need the rock to tell the story. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it looked good.
Yep. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Nice, Deb. Anything else you want to add on this one, David?
It's I think it's probably too much to do at this point, but I will say I'm finding in my own photography that sometimes in a shot like this, if I'm seeing some blue sky above the scene, it can almost be a distraction. And I love blue sky. I think everybody loves blue sky, and you have clouds, which is good. But just in the future, when you're looking through the viewfinder to take a shot like this, try something where you omit the sky and really hone in on the scenery. Because and it just depends, but because it's kind of like a sliver of sky up there. It just I don't know. It's taken my eyes away from the beauty of the scene there. Yeah, I mean that obviously that's a heavy crop, but to
Right. Yep.
me it just altogether the colors and the shadow and the light, it just kind of flows a little bit better. But it's not a bad image. It was just I was kind of struggling with like what could you do with that sky, and I think that definitely looks that's a cool take on that shot, even though it's a very different
Hmm.
crop, it's a cool take, and, if you shoot something like this at a high enough resolution, you can do stuff like that all day long, and
Yep.
it's kinda fun to be able to rework it completely.
Yep. Yep. And when we did this show, a lot of times I'll say, we're not necessarily advocating to go crop the crap out of your photos, but we're
No.
talking, we're giving you ideas. And what David was just sharing with you is, when you're shooting this, maybe think about shooting these alternate. And Deb, you may have done this. You may have other options as well. But I agree that the sky is an interesting part of the story. But I really love this tighter crop. We start to notice the color of the water a little bit more, the little bit more of the play of the light across that land. I think
Yeah.
those become more stronger parts of the story, which are really interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Good points.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Deb. Thanks for submitting that. Let's move on to Kevin Walk's
Yeah.
Red Barn Reflection. I don't know if that's what he titled it, but I just called it that. This is neat. There's a couple of things that I love. It looks like an old barn because it's got some grass growing up on the roof. We've got a great reflection here. I don't know. I'm going to hit the R key to bring up the crop tool, and I don't know if it is 100% as straight as I would like. I'm going to bring it. What I'm looking at here is kind of this left edge of the barn and this doorway here. And they might not be good guidelines for figuring out if they're straight or not, because it's an old barn. It might be a little slopey and not so square anymore. But it felt like the water line was also just a little bit slanted. So I'm kind of watching that and finding a spot. And you can, of course, grab the little angle tool if you want and just draw it right along the edge of the water surface and see where it ends up. And I think that's just a little bit straighter.
Definitely.
And then sadly, my eye keeps getting pulled up to this huge house up here on the hill. I think that's Batman's house. It just looks like a mansion, even though it's really far away. So this is, yes, this could be removed with Photoshop pretty easily. That may be something you might want to do, Kevin. Or thinking about, the way you shot this, maybe a little bit more of a straight on angle, stepping over here to the right a little bit if that was possible, and shooting this almost in a very symmetrical fashion that would kind of hidden that house off on the right-hand side of the image instead. Would be something. And then always with reflections, I like to work on them a little bit. I've got the graduated tool here. I'm going to bring this up. Oops. It is set on whatever I was just doing with it last. So let's refresh or reset that by hitting effect. I might cool that reflection down a little bit just to make it feel a little bit more watery. It's not moving. There we go. Just a little bit more blue to that reflection. And then clarity or texture. This texture slider has been added fairly recently. David Carr, have you been using it much?
I have. I'm having to talk myself out of using too much of it.
It seems to be a slider that you can be much more heavy-handed with than
You really can.
clarity or sharpness in the past.
Well, and I feel like I feel like when I first started using Lightroom that clarity was a little more like what texture is now. I don't know, maybe it wasn't, but it seemed like I could push clarity a lot further at one point, and you could get kind of this cool gritty thing. And now you push clarity all the way, and it's just obnoxious on most photos. But texture has been pretty nice. I mean, it's a subtle way to bring out some of those details.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. So, and I think that can often work nicely on reflections. It makes it pop a little bit more. Again, don't overdo it so that the reflection looks like an exact mirror copy. Good reflection never does, or except in very rare cases. And I happened to glance over at chat, and Andrew's asking about this tree that's kind of creeping in on the left, and would you crop that out? And I think that might be a decent suggestion. I don't think it adds any to the story.
I was going to say the same. And you've got so much shadow to the left of that barn that it kind of just, there's this empty space and then a tree. So doing what you're doing there, you're bringing the barn a little bit further to the left, and it cleans it up nicely, I think.
Yeah. And then you could just kind of cue that out there in that section. And it's done a fairly terrible job, but let's use clone in that case, and it's done an all right job. And don't forget to clone out in the reflections as well, although it's harder to see down there in the water, but just got that there as well. Yeah, I think that's pretty nice. Anything else that you would like to see worked on in this, David?
I've been into color cast a lot lately and just playing with color cast. And sometimes I'll get into the color sliders and, try a slightly different hue of red, a slightly different hue of green, or it just, and it's not bad at all. I just wonder if, number one, I wonder how it would look black and white with some good like clarity or texture, kind of a little crunchy. I don't know. I see what you're doing there, and it looks like it's just another take on it. And perhaps when it was color, maybe just dehazing it slightly would define the colors, and just I just mess with stuff, and sometimes it's terrible when I'm done messing with it, so I just undo it all. But I feel like it could pop a little more, and I feel like that's just popping a little more. I like it. I mean, it looks like this was taken probably midday, or sometime when the sun was pretty high in the sky, and so you're not going to get that warm morning or evening light. So you have what you have. But it's a beautiful barn, and the reflection. That's a cool scene.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, comment to talk about using dehaze on this, because it wasn't an image that really necessarily looked hazy, but I think it was a great suggestion in that it did improve the image and kind of just kind of added a little bit of richness and fought back that midday kind of washout.
Yeah, and I'll confess, so dehaze used to be at the bottom of the slider, the whole panel in the develop module, and I just never even thought about it. I mean, it was below the vignetting option, so I just never even looked at it. I never even cared about it. And when they moved it up, I started messing with it more. I was like, oh, that's how I get that effect I've been trying to get, or that's how I clean this up. I mean, I have used it so much, not obnoxiously, but a lot of photos, I'm putting a little bit of it on there just to see what it does, and it's it's funny how you'll come across something that's been there all along, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think it is interesting to talk about color. This was a discussion in our Facebook group just a few days ago. Roy had written a post about this ages ago about how different cameras kind of treat colors, especially Canon and Canon Red. And it was actually, this discussion was triggered by one of our members saying, why do these red flowers look a little off from my camera? And they had a Canon, and there was a whole discussion. And so this whole little kind of color panel is one way to work on them. You also have, I've hidden it now, but the panel at the very bottom, how do you get those? There we are. Customized develop panel. The calibration is something you can also work in as well. I've hidden that because I just don't use it. But yeah, those are good suggestions as well. Okay, let's move on. Chris Bartell has submitted, I think she went to this a Native American a kind of event, and she's been sharing each week different pictures that I've just found pretty fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a cool shot.
Yep.
Gosh.
Very cool. The only thing that I really notice, and again, I'm not sure if this is coming through on the YouTube so well, David, is the background. I'm not sure if it is a fabric or if you did something, Chris, but it feels noisy. That's really my only suggestion. And the way I'd probably clean that up is I'd get the brush, jack up the noise. So the noise slider to 100 means that it's going to be the most aggressive at removing noise. And then I'd come in here with kind of a brush, probably auto mask on.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd turn it off at first to do kind of quick outside, and then I'd turn it on to get inside. And I would just let it kind of smooth that out in that area and fight back some of that. Otherwise, I think this is great. Any other thoughts?
Well, Chris is saying that it was a fake background. It was too busy. So fake as in it was painted in after. I mean, I don't.
I think so. Chris
Okay.
has submitted something of that sort before. We've been impressed with her work.
I mean, it's really a cool. It's a great color. I think it just maybe if there's a way to smooth that out a little bit more. I would even see if you can go darker and almost to black and see how it looks. But just it may not look any better, any worse. I don't know, but it just that is a cool image. I feel like there's not a whole lot to say about it other than there might be a little bit of shadowing or something you can do to just give it a little more drama. Like I've really been into dark photographs lately. Not spiritually dark or anything, but
okay, good.
But dark where it's not like obnoxiously dark, but to where it's just got this mood, and like it's just pushing the highlights enough to be. So I don't know. This looks like an image that could be kind of manipulated that way, just for fun. I don't know if it would be pulling up some gradients but I do that a lot now in some images, especially when there's a human being involved. I try to play with almost like relighting it after the fact, and you have to be super careful because it can look very fake. But I don't know. It's a cool shot. And I love the color. I think this is one that can be. The saturation is great as it is. It doesn't need to be pulled back. I mean, just very unique, but such a great shot.
Yeah, I agree. Very cool. I just kind of happy with how well that quickly worked in the auto mask button, just really nicely kind of kept off of the feathers. A tip for doing that is you don't have to necessarily carefully paint in here. You can just click. As long as you're clicking in the center, or as long as your center is clicking in the spot you want painted, it will find those edges, and it's very nicely. If I hit my little brush again and hit the O key to see where it's painted on, you can see that it very nicely, I didn't carefully paint around that bit of feather there. It followed those edges. I've missed a couple of spots, but because of the way that background painted in, Chris, I think it's fine. Nice. Very
that's
cool.
Great. And I want to say, because I'm still fairly new to the critiquing thing, and I know when I've had an image critiqued, I always welcome those critiques, but just anything we say, it's not that we're right. It's just these are just things as we see it, and sometimes it just gives you food for thought, and sometimes you might go, no, that's how I wanted it to be, and we're like, cool, So it's I hope everybody knows that. I think everybody's mature enough to know that, but anything we suggest is just based on how we see it, and but you guys are submitting great stuff. It's really, really great.
What are you talking about, man? Our word is the law.
It is. It's well, yeah. I'm just
No,
yeah.
no, I totally agree. And, I always I always feel bad suggesting, Kevin, maybe you should have stepped to the right a little bit. Maybe that meant you fell into the pond and got eaten by an alligator, So
Exactly.
we never know for sure, but we're just kind of throwing stuff out there. We're going to move on to Paul Anderson's Prescott, Arizona storm. He also, I saw, posted in the Facebook group and said he was worried that maybe it looked a little too salty. And for those who aren't regular members or have kind of participated in our feedback, we really use the term salt on food to kind of when we're talking about this section of presence down here. And meaning that a little dash of salt can really bring out the flavor in a dish. But if you oversalt something, very quickly, it becomes way overpowering and you can't move past it. And that's very much what this kind of section is like. A little bit can really go a long way. And if something looks a little too salty, it can be distracting. But I have to say, this looks great. I love this.
I agree. That's fantastic.
And one of the things that helps me figure out whether or not I feel like something's salty is whether or not I feel like those colors don't exist in nature. So if people have brought the saturation slider over here, so I just went to plus 55 real quick. I've never seen a sky glow pink like that. I have seen skies, as Paul submitted this with just this little kind of caresses of pink coloring in here. That looks natural and possible to me. What I think really makes this is this kind of cloud formations that are above this really cool reservoir or body of water. I'm not even quite sure what it is. That's not faked. That is just a really cool scene.
That's fantastic, and I've been to that lake 2 times and shot it. In fact,
cool.
Yeah, in fact, the very first landscape photograph I ever took that I was really proud of was of that lake in Prescott, Arizona. That's Lake Watson or Watson Lake, I think. I was on tour with my band out there, and I was just getting into photography, and I was like, I just want to go find something cool. We're going to be in Arizona, and so I just looked up anything cool around where we're going to be, Lake Watson, Watson Lake, whatever it is. And we stopped the bus at like 7 a.m. I got out and took a bunch of photos, and it was just gorgeous. But I did not see that scene with the storm. That is epic. And I agree with everything you said, Toby. It's like there's the pink, but it's like it's just hinting at it. It's not obnoxious. And there's a certain flow to the whole photograph. If you start in the upper right hand corner and move left kind of down, following the clouds, then swirling back to the right a little bit where the rain is falling, where the heavy part of the storm is, and then back into the lake, and it swirls back towards the left. There's just this almost like this S curve in the whole photo that just, I don't know, it just looks really right to me. I love it.
Yeah, I've really nicely done, Paul. It's a great image. The only thing that I think I could offer up as a suggestion is there's a little bit more I'd like to see in the foreground. It's kind of the opposite of what I've said about some of the other images we've seen, but some of these rocks feel just a little bit too right on the edge. And up here, you have just a little bit of extra space that not a ton is going on. I mean, I don't want all of that gone because I think some of it is nice. It's kind of, it shows the difference in the sky from this kind of flat gray to all of a sudden this cloud that I'm sure an alien spaceship is hiding in. You could have pointed the camera down by about an inch up top, and that give you about a half inch down at the bottom, I think. But really, overall, very nice. And I love the fact that David Carr, you knew where this was, and it's one of your shots that you've taken before that you liked.
Yeah, if I was able to somehow show you guys right now, I would show you mine, but it's nowhere near as good as that. It's great.
Still, it looks like a beautiful spot. And Paul, I know you submit pretty often to the monthly image as well. And yeah, good luck on that. I know you posted in the community forum and you're going to get some feedback there as well. Cool. Okay, thank you to everybody who submitted images. We're going to come back here and thank you, folks, submitting images. If you would like to submit images and get feedback on this show, you can become a Photo Enthusiast Network member. As I said, photoenthusiastnetwork.com to learn more. And it's just one of several ways that you can get feedback on your work. So at the beginning of the show, I said I wanted to try to keep it to about an hour. I always do a terrible job at that. But Dave Carr, I want to ask you a little bit. You are now a brand new YouTuber. You got any thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, I guess, you know, if I've only uploaded one video, I'm technically a YouTuber. But you know, I'm about to do some more. I'm still, it's like a lot of things where I'm just figuring out the flow and how to get it to work. But I've got the equipment now to do it well, and you know, learning the editing side of it. So I mean, I'm kind of a one-man show here. I don't have anybody at this point assisting me on any of these things. But uh yeah, I was thinking about how, you know, the reviews that you do, Toby, I'm not just saying this. I've said this to people when I'm not looking at you face to face. Your reviews are great because they're encouraging. It's not all this negativity. I mean, if you don't like something, you're going to tell us, and that's great. But I see so many reviews where people just bash stuff, and they just blatantly, nothing's ever good enough, and it's always just, and I just don't think that's constructive. And so I wanted to do a review that was just, I wanted to start doing reviews that were really short and sweet, that just talk about the feel and the aesthetics, at least for now, unless I decide to get to a point where I do some more detailed reviews and go into some of the more nuanced things about the gear. But I know sometimes when I'm trying to decide which lens to buy, which camera, which whatever, I almost just want that enthusiastic review to watch where somebody goes, you know what, it's just great. It just really works well for me. And I bought the new Nikon 24 to 70 S mount, the Z mount lens, the 2.8 S. It was an expensive lens, but I bought it because there was so much enthusiasm about it in the reviews, and I wasn't looking at all the specs and all the graphs and charts. I was just looking at, these people seem to really love this lens, so I'll probably love this lens. And so I just want to kind of be that voice in the review world for now, because there are tons of amazing people who are already giving you every little detail about everything, and I'm just not at that place yet. So
Yeah,
we'll see how
cool.
it goes.
Cool. David, I've linked to your video down below. And of course, folks, you click that link and then click the subscribe button, get a few more subscribers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. I mean, you're going to get like 2 more, so don't
No,
get
it's
too
great.
excited.
You know, it's all very small potatoes right now, but I'm excited to do more reviews and get out there.
So you mentioned the 24 to 70, you know, you saw some reviews. Do you think that might be a lens that you're going to review soon?
Yeah, I definitely will. I want to review the Z6 and the 24 to 70. Just again, based on the experience I've had with it. Because I have 3 Nikon cameras that are all, you know, pro cameras, and I love them all, but there's something about the Z6, I keep grabbing it, and I want to explain what that is.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I really like the Z6 a lot. I think Nikon did a really good job. There's a few little quibbles I have with it, but overall,
Oh, me too. Absolutely.
it's one of the most comfortable, most well thought out cameras that I've really ever held in my hands, and that's nice.
It just feels way more pro than I thought it would. I thought it might feel light and flimsy, and it is light, but it still feels substantial, and it feels like it could handle some tough weather and some, you know, and it just, it's not perfect, but for the first foray into the mirrorless world for Nikon, I think they've done a pretty good job. There's a lot of negativity about it, but I don't care. I like it.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's the tools that work for you. And, you know, I think I'm usually not terribly negative about gear, because it works out there for somebody. And I kind of try to just lay out, you know, what parts of it I think work well and what parts of it might not work well.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, there's something to be said for being controversial. You get a few more views. So if you want to put up a rant, you know, feel free to.
Yeah, I may just do that. I mean, yeah, the way I see it, and I say this a lot, is like, if everybody just steps back for a moment and looks at everything that's out there on the market right now in the world of photography, even like, let's say prosumer and up, it's all really great. I mean, it's all capable of doing really great stuff. It's just about what do you like? What features matter to you? And when you're shooting with this camera all day, what's annoying about it and what do you love? And we all just have different tastes, but it's all really good stuff. And splitting hairs over a little bit of softness in the corners on this lens versus this one. I mean, that stuff just hardly ever makes you any more money or makes anybody that much more impressed with your photography. So while we can nerd out on that stuff, I think you have to step back and go like, just be an artist, just shoot and have fun and create. And so
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of paired with that is that feeling of like for Sony A7R3 users or owners that recently purchased, and now there's this better camera that's been announced and will be here in September.
Yeah.
A feeling of kind of like being betrayed. You have a fantastic camera now in your hand. Go make some beautiful shots with it. Yes, it's now not worth quite as much as it was the moment you bought it, but that's not really why you bought it. You didn't buy it as an investment. This isn't Bitcoin, although it loses value just as good as Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly.
You bought it to go make pictures. Now go make pictures. People.
Yeah, and I have to remind myself to do that. Just quit talking about all the stuff and just go do it,
Yeah. All right, let's move on a little bit. There are a couple of things we wanted to hit before we get to some great questions towards the end. One is we haven't talked much about Canon. They are rumored to be announcing the Canon 90D later this month, or actually I think in August, next month, or maybe the EOS M5 Mark II. Now, the current rumor, David, I don't know if you're up on this or not, is that the 90D will blend features of the 80D, very popular mid-range DSLR from Canon, with the 7D Mark II, which is kind of Canon's top-of-the-line APS-C camera, built like a tank, very fast focusing system. It's basically kind of an APS-C version, a smaller sensor size version of their flagship camera. And there is this other rumor that it possibly will be mirrorless.
Interesting.
Now, I say bull crap. There's no way, no offense, Canon, but there is no way you are ready to replace your flagship DSLR APS-C, that has awesome focusing capabilities with a mirrorless. You're not there yet. So I do think the 90D is coming. I do think that the rumor of it combining these two DSLRs, because, we talk about this. I've talked about this in a fairly recent show, I think. Canon is a giant company, but even these giant companies have to decide what they're going to work on, what they're going to put people power towards and marketing power. And when you're launching a whole new line of cameras, you can't continue to keep all of the existing cameras going as well. So they have to say, okay, we're going to have less DSLRs on the market. And I do think it will be combined. I think it will be fairly nice. I'm curious to see what price point it kind of falls into. The 80D is a very, very popular camera. It's a good all-around camera. We recommend it often for tours. It's a nice size because it's APS-C. Your lenses are fairly affordable and remain kind of a nice size as well. So it'll be interesting to see. But for those of you who are waiting for that mirrorless version of it, you will be waiting a little bit longer. And then, I haven't heard anything recently about Nikon's super affordable mirrorless. David, have you heard any rumors?
I have not. The only rumor I keep hearing is a D6 with some of the features of the mirrorless, like the image, in-body image stabilization and things like that. But who knows? It remains to be seen. They're going to have to come out with something a little more affordable, although the price of the Z6 has dropped significantly since, it's about $1,700, $1,800 now, which is still a lot of money, but it's a very, very capable camera. So
that's a pretty fantastic value. I felt like the Z6 was a decent value at its launch price, and for them to drop that,
yes,
that's great. That's great. If you're comfortable with Nikon, you've been in that Nikon world, I think that's a really nice and pretty compelling camera.
Yeah. Definitely. I don't know as far as the less expensive mirrorless, but I know they've all the companies have that stuff in the works, but it's just a matter of, they've got their accountants and they've got their sales team and everything. It's all chicken or the egg stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's move on a little bit more. One thing that I wanted to talk about briefly is road trip gadgets. I took I mentioned taking a road trip. It was about two weeks long, and mostly fantastic time. you know, the gadget I wish I'd had the most was a bigger car, because, you know, we were in an older Audi station wagon, 4 of us, with all of the gear we needed for camping for a week or 2 weeks, and we were pretty crammed in there. And we even had a rooftop box, and shutting that rooftop box every night, man, or every morning as we packed everything up, it was kind of like, I made up some new cuss words. I'll just say that. Just made up some new cuss words. Just
I could have made some up
so much stuff. Why did we bring all this? And, you know, that eventually something would latch. So the problem is, if it's too full, I think you all get the idea. It just won't latch. And you just kind of keep squeezing and squishing and hoping through the magic of physics or anti-physics. I don't know. But the one thing that I was really testing on that trip was kind of, can an iPad Pro replace a laptop for travel with ease of use of still sharing content that you're creating, still backing up, because of course I'm running the beta, the iPad OS that's coming a little bit later this year. I have updated the beta. I have a video, my most recent video on my YouTube channel is about this. The short answer is yes, it can. The longer answer is, even with the changes they've made, even with a mouse and keyboard setup, it's still not nearly as kind of efficient and easy to work with as a real laptop. I'll have more about that in a video soon. Do I want an iPad Pro? Sure. But if I had limited funds and I had to decide between this or a laptop, at this point, I'm still going to go with a laptop because of just the increased versatility still there with a laptop. But an iPad Pro is very nice. It's very nice. You an iPad user, David Carr? I know you're in the Apple world.
I don't really have. I have one, but it's old and I don't even use it. It's a little iPad Mini. But I am very intrigued by the iPad Pro and the new Photoshop that will be released for that at some point. I feel like there's this X factor, and I don't know what it is, but something else is going to have to be in place that makes it a really big aha, I'm ready to jump kind of moment. And I don't know if that's software, hardware. I don't know. It's going to have to do something with storage. And I mean, you can get a pretty robust hard drive in the iPad Pro, but I don't know. There's something about the laptop that just still feels like such a workhorse. And I feel like there could potentially be a lot of compromises with the iPad. However, who knows? It's headed that way.
It certainly is.
When.
Yeah. I mean, putting that iPad OS on there, the beta, giving you access to hard drives you can plug in. It's certainly better, but I think that term of workhorse, you know, the computer still wins out. Let me ask you this: you're headed to Tanzania in just a couple weeks as part of the McKay Photography Workshop. That's really exciting. Are you taking a laptop with you?
I am actually going to take the laptop that I'm looking at you guys on right now from. I am going to take it for sure.
Okay. Yeah. It's just to be able to back up, be able to edit and share while you're out there.
Because I like to, when I'm on a trip, to at least be able to, you know, we're eager to look at our images and want to see what I've gotten today so that I can, if I didn't nail it, maybe tomorrow I can, and just
yeah, that's actually a huge point. I'm really glad you said that, because that is part of it as well. We talk about this on workshops from time to time. Being able to kind of check in on your work. You spent a lot of time and energy to go someplace amazing, make beautiful pictures. And if you're not kind of checking in, the spot checking, am I nailing focus as often as I think I am? Am I exposing correctly? Is this camera doing what I think it should be doing? Right. You might get home and find that there's a large chunk of your images that didn't turn out as expected, and an iPad but more so, we're saying a laptop just makes that easy to check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I'm excited. Again, follow David Carr. We'll see. You won't have great service out there, but from time to time you will have some service. I'm really excited to see this trip through your eyes and see some of your shots.
Thank you. I am like ecstatic about it. It's going to be amazing.
And you got immunized today. I saw that on Instagram. You sore shoulder.
Well, it actually didn't happen yet, but I'm going back next. I had a consultation. Long story short, I'm going back next week. Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure I was getting what I needed and not spending too much money on a bunch of stuff I don't need. So
very smart. Very smart. Why pay more for getting jabbed a bunch with needles?
I know, and having diseases put in me.
Yeah. All right. So let's just kind of skip towards the end of the show, I think. One thing I will say is that we are working from show notes put together by Roy, linked below this video, a bunch of different articles that we haven't even touched on. But if you're kind of interested in what we think is the most interesting news of the past week or so, you could click through and find that link. One is the camera that went to the moon and changed how we see it. This is kind of our photos from space segment. And it is, of course, about a Hasselblad, the 500C. And I just think it's just been a really cool this last week as we've celebrated the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, from that projection that they did on the Washington Monument of the Apollo that was animated. I don't know if you saw anything from that, David Carr. It looked so cool.
I just saw an image of it. I need to go back and watch the animation.
It's actually, so for anybody who didn't, the Washington Monument in downtown Washington, D.C., they projected on the side of it a kind of live animation of the Saturn V rocket, and it just looked really, really neat, really well done. But this is just a really cool story about the photography on the moon. When you look back at these pictures, the clarity of them, it's pretty awesome. And there's just a lot to be said for this.
Can I throw one thing in there too?
Oh, you bet.
As far as imaging and just being blown away with something that was shot that long ago, if you have not seen the Apollo 11 documentary, the movie, it is a must see for anybody that's into photography, videography, film, whatever. It is unbelievable what they were able to do back then with 70 millimeter film, which is a very, 70 millimeter. That's a wide format of actual film that they shot the entire mission with. And it's an awesome documentary. Very cool.
That sounds very cool. Thanks for putting in that plug. And it just scrolling through a couple of these pictures real quick, just really neat. And it's kind of neat. My mom posted, I knew this, but it was just kind of neat to see from her memory. She worked at ILC in Delaware during this time at the place that made these spacesuits.
Oh, I saw that. That's so cool.
Yeah, we were talking about that on the family vacation, and she was talking about the people that sewed these spacesuits. They were older women who just were really good with threaded needle. So, you look at this very high-tech thing, and then she said it was hilarious, this picture of this room filled with, grandmas sewing spacesuits. So it's just
wow,
pretty cool, pretty neat all around, just really kind of a fun,
so cool
experience. And
my mother also worked sort of on that whole era of the Apollo. She was a graphic designer at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi, and she was drawing all these pictures of the rocket sections and for like graphics and stuff that they were going to put on the walls and in materials.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, neat. Our moms are connected in space.
Space moms.
Yeah. Space moms. I love it. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the Q&A part. We're going to wrap this show up here in just a few minutes. Ursula wants to know, with the release of the Sony A7R4, do I think it'll mean a price reduction in the A7 III? Not for a while. I think that camera was pretty aggressively priced when it came out, and I think Sony recognizes that. I think the market has recognized that, and now we are well over a year of that camera being out, and that price is going to hold steady for a little while longer. So that is, kind of a bummer for those who are waiting and wanting for that to drop. But it remains a fantastic and great all-around camera. As I kind of said, I know $500 is a chunk of change more, but the R3 is pretty compelling, if you are doing landscape or even wildlife, because the amount of cropping you have there and still can print decent size is pretty nice. So it really depends on your user case. General, all-purpose, all-around photography, that A7 III is really, really hard to beat. But if you're tending a little bit more towards landscape or possibly wildlife, another $500 gets you a lot more megapixels. And that kind of goes, let's see, Hero Shots says, should I pick up the A7R2 for $1,000 or just pre-order this A7R4? And then you kind of amended that question. You could pick up the A7R2, the Sigma 105 f1.4 and 70-200 f4 for about the same price as just the A7R4 by itself. Here's the A7R2. I owned it and used it. I had it from the moment it came out until the moment the A7R. Actually, I still own it. That's what's filming this show right now, streaming live. It remains a fantastic camera, but its usability and kind of form and function, I never loved using it. I loved the results I got out of it because of that wonderful sensor in it, 42 megapixels, but I never loved using the camera itself. I always kind of felt like I was fighting with it a little bit. It wasn't just kind of as friendly as I wanted. And as I said, in some action sequences, I feel like I missed shots because I couldn't move my focus point fast enough. It didn't have a little focus point nub. So, but that all said, buying just a camera by itself or buying a camera with a bunch of fantastic lenses always move with you from body to body on up for the most part. And they are actually usually decent investments because they stay with you for so long, whereas bodies, come and go. I'd say, can you split the difference and pick up the R3 and a lens or two? Maybe you don't get as many because you're spending, only just $1,000 less, but at least you get into the system with a lens as opposed to just the body itself. Yeah. Jope wants to know what I think the best budget DSLR for beginners is right now, or wants what we think. They bought the Canon 800D and I love it. Any lens suggestions? Well, I feel like this is a trick question because you want to know what the best budget DSLR is, but you've already bought the 800D. Do you think they're trying to trick us, David?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting the 800, the D800, the 800D. What
800D? It's kind of it's the latest like Rebel.
Okay,
Canon
okay,
Rebel
yeah.
DSLR. I think it's a great camera. I think it is a fantastic camera. I tend to lean a little bit more towards Nikon these days. I didn't used to. You watch my early reviews when you kind of put the latest Rebel versus the latest like D5000 series line. But I feel like Nikon has pulled ahead just a little bit. They've really kind of caught up on the video side of things. That was where they lagged before. And their sensors, they often use Sony sensors. They're just a little bit ahead of Canon. But man, Canon is very friendly and easy to use. So that 800D remains excellent. Lens-wise, David, let me ask you, what was the very first lens you bought with your whatever camera you bought first? What was the first lens you bought?
Yeah, I think it was a 50 millimeter 1.8 was my first, other than a kit lens.
Yeah.
And loved it. But then I bought a 24-70 2.8, and that was like a real turning point for me. It just felt like now I'm shooting with pro stuff,
Yeah.
Not that the 50 is not pro. It just the 24-70 just, I was like, I see photographers using this all the time. So
yeah, there's a reason. It's fantastic range and that nice constant wide aperture. But that is my suggestion for you, Jope. If you don't have a prime lens, the 50 is fantastic. The 35 also, or you're on the Canon side, the 40 millimeter f2.8. Those are just kind of nice general fast wide prime lenses that give you a taste of what a wider aperture is like, and also make your camera more portable and kind of lightweight and fun to carry around. So that's something I would consider. John wants us, what do we expect from Canon's next R, the next mirrorless? Do we think it's a sports related camera like the A9? The Olympics are coming. Yes, that's true. The Olympics are coming next summer. Canon would certainly love to have, I think, a pro level mirrorless out by then. That's what the rumor says. I think we'll see that. And I don't mean to sound negative, but I really do think Canon is struggling to come up with a focusing system that matches their DSLRs. And whereas Sony has kind of surpassed that already, Canon is still struggling, but I think that's where we're going to see Canon put a lot of energy, is try to come up with something that shows the world that they can have a flagship level mirrorless camera that competes. Yeah. And then they're going to throw a few bells and whistles in it that probably nobody really cares about, like that dual raw pixel where you can adjust focus after the fact, but only by a few microns, so nobody uses it ever. So that's what I'll get. And then John, also you want to know iPad Pro or Surface 6. I haven't used the latest Surface, but if you go back and watch my Vietnam gear video from, I think that was just last year, I was really unhappy with the Surface system. Really unhappy. So I'm an Apple user, but for mobile devices, I like Android, and I was really excited about the Surface, but in reality, I found it to be very underpowered, and the pen tablet input kind of half computer, half tablet thing just did not work well for me. It's the perfect idea, but the implementation isn't quite there. I should go back and take a quick look, or at least a more detailed look at Surface as it is now, and see if it's working better. But the iPad, what I'll say about the iPad is even the beta software just runs pretty darn smoothly. So
I find that interesting because even though I'm a proud Apple user, I'm not an Apple snob to the point where I think everything's better. I see stuff like the Surface where it's half tablet, half laptop, and I'm like, oh, that's actually a really great idea. I wish Apple would do something like that. But then to hear you say it wasn't implemented quite the way that, you know, that you wish it was, or it just wasn't as great as you thought it would be. That's interesting to hear. I think that stuff is probably going to be the future, but if it's just not there yet, it's not there yet.
mhm.
And maybe
Yeah,
it's working great for somebody else.
that's true. The user case, how are you using it? What do you expect out of it? Definitely matters. Yeah. Yeah. John, I just saw that you watched the landing live. Unforgettable. That's very, very cool. I like that.
Wow.
Last question we have. Subs Vids wants to know, what do we think is the most competent hybrid camera? I David Carr, I think you got your hands on one of the top. The Z6, I think, is a fantastic all-around photo and video. Just some really nice video features in there on top of being a great photography camera.
Yeah, I mean, I mainly bought it for the video purposes, and I wasn't even shooting video, but I wanted to. I wanted to get into video, and I was like, well, I have to have something to shoot that with. And the Z6 just made sense from everything I had read, and the video quality is just top notch. It's incredible, and really what that is all about. Because the video quality on the D850 is great, and on the D5, except that the autofocus is terrible on
Mm-hmm.
those. In my opinion, it just doesn't. You hear it the whole time, and it's hunting. It just can't find it. If you're shooting stationary on a fixed focus, those cameras actually do a tremendous job. But the Z6, it just has a beautiful smooth focus system, and now it's got the, eye autofocus, which works really, really well. And I don't know. I think it's a great hybrid camera for me. I'm not kidding you guys. Like every time I go to grab a camera, I just grab that one. And maybe that's because it's the new one, but I've had it for about 4 or 5 months now, and I'm still grabbing it. So that says something.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I think the Sony A7 III is a really good option as well. I don't think it's quite as strong on the video side, but I think then maybe it's a little bit stronger on the photo side. So it really kind of, again, your use case. But those are the two that I put near the top at reasonable prices. There are some other options if you want to spend actually, I don't know. I mean, the Z7, lots more megapixels and same video features as the Z6. So that's an option as well. The A7R3 or the A7R4, which will have that real-time IAF, which is something that makes it really, really nice.
Yeah, that's great.
David, let me ask you, as a new YouTuber with no videographer behind the camera, how are you setting up for your shots?
Well, so the shot that I did, well, the first video I shot, I just had a tripod, obviously, and just I've got it in autofocus, but it's kind of like it's a full-time autofocus, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do several test shots and go back and watch and make sure that I was in focus. And the first few times I wasn't, I didn't have the focus point, or I don't remember what it was, but I finally got it and it just worked. It just worked. And even if I moved forward a little bit, it tracked me, and um it worked really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it would be nice to have somebody there helping, because I did probably like 8 takes before I was remotely satisfied. And I say remotely because I'm picky, but yeah, it'd be nice to have somebody there to kind of say, no, stop, let's start again. It didn't sound good. It didn't look good, but
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah. 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 So that's cool. And it's funny. John commented in chat, it's funny to hear the brand Nikon mentioned with great video features.
I know.
It's an area they've struggled with for so long. And then they really made a commitment. And these Z series, they are some of the best video cameras and hybrid cameras out there now.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
Yep. Very cool. Okay, well, I think we've come to the end of the show. We're going to wrap this up, and I'm going to say thank you all for watching. If you've watched to the end, then we probably deserve a thumbs up because we didn't bore you away. So hit that thumbs up button. Find David's link for Instagram and the YouTube channel right down below this video and go give those a little love as well. And thank you, David, for hanging out with us on this Wednesday evening in your neck of the woods.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed it. I always love this, and I love talking about photography, and I love talking about it with people who like to hear about it and like to talk as well. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. And chat room, thank you for hanging out with us as well. And I do think I will see you all next week. I'll put up a note about that very soon, but it's like a day before I leave. So I think I can do this show again next week before there's some time off. So we'll stay tuned for that, and consider Squarespace, squarespace.com/PhotoRecTV to save 10%, and consider becoming a Photo Enthusiast Network member for access to immense amounts of photography education, post-processing tutorials, and lots more. Links for those are right down below this video as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And